Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar. Our webinar is entitled RMB Internationalization and How It Can Benefit Your Company. As many of you know, the RMB issues have been in the newspapers globally, and today I would like to give you some practical advice on how it can actually be used to benefit your business while either sourcing or selling into China. Before beginning, I would like to give you a brief introduction to who ClayCore Group is. ClayCore Group is an international management consulting firm that was started in 1979. It has grown to 120 consultants, accountants, and legal professionals that are sitting in our 10 offices in China, Hong Kong, and in Singapore. We offer pre-investment service advice as well as post-investment and investment. We assist clients particularly in the trading sector that are either buying or selling in China. To begin today's webinar, I want to follow you through a couple of statistics that have been rather astounding in terms of the renminbi growth globally. Over the last 20 years, China has achieved a 70-fold increase in its GDP from less than 400 billion US dollar in 1990 to over 7 trillion in 2011. The FDI has also grown significantly. FDI is foreign direct investment from around 100 billion US dollar to nearly 4 trillion during the same period over the last 20 years. China is now the second largest economy and trading country, and the IMF has projected that China will contribute to more than 1/3 of global growth by 2015. As a result, it does make sense that the renminbi will become more widely used for trade and investment activities. And since the pilot scheme opened in 2009, total trade in RMB has increased from 2 to 8% over just a one-year period, which is an extensive growth. Investments between China and the rest of the world can be conducted in RMB. Chinese enterprises can invest in RMB for overseas direct investments. This is new. This has only been since January 2011. And foreign direct investment into China is also possible to be done in RMB, but with some restrictions. There are some approval processes which do need to occur, and this has been since October 2011. Now, previously, during the pilot scheme of the RMB, there were certain restrictions in order to slow the growth of how the RMB was actually used. The companies in China had to go through an approval process in order to become a mainland designated enterprise. As soon as they were given this approval, they were able to transact for all import and export in RMB. The non-MDEs, the non-land mainland designated enterprises, were not permitted to do this. They still had to do everything in foreign currency. As of April 2012, all companies registered in China, whether foreign invested or domestically Chinese, can handle import and export trade transactions in RMB without going through an approval process. This basically means that all you have to go is to the bank or to your tax bureau to make sure that taxes have been declared, and the bank will handle the transaction in RMB without any issues. Now, this is all in theory. I will go into more the practical approach and what I have heard with many of our clients in terms of handling these procedures, but in theory, all companies in China as well as overseas are able to transact in RMB without handling any types of applications or approval processes. In services, it is the same. You can transact in RMB without any problems. And again, you don't need any approval processes. The only place where you would need approval is for capital investment into China, With your registered capital or your total investment, there are approval processes that do need to occur, and generally speaking, the government does prefer that you invest in foreign currency versus in RMB. That's just the experience we've had in the last 6 months. But it's worthwhile trying if you really do want to invest in RMB. So what are the benefits of using RMB to conduct trade? And again, all of this is theory related. In practice, there might be other issues that you would need to consider. Well, the first is improving pricing competitiveness. Basically, you're eliminating the currency exchange costs and risks. What I would like to mention here is that I have had quite a few clients that have negotiated with their suppliers in China. They've begun negotiations in RMB, and surprisingly, these suppliers have been giving cheaper and better prices for the fact that the suppliers don't want to receive foreign currency any longer. The whole trade transaction or service transaction is identical, but they are giving cheaper prices, which is quite interesting and something definitely to explore. You do get a large client base as well as business partners in China. The reason being is that you might be working with a lot of suppliers in China who cannot handle export transactions. As such, you're usually using an import-export agent to handle the export. In theory, you shouldn't need to use an import-export agent any longer. In fact, you should be free to handle directly with these companies that don't have the export license, because actually they can handle all the transactions in RMB. The shorted settlement cycle, this basically means that because the currency exchange risk is on your side, you'll be handling this. The payments should be shorter. This is more important actually on the customer side. If you do have customers in China, then actually they should not be giving you any excuses any longer in terms of delayed payments, because in fact they don't have to deal with currency exchange. They can just go to the bank and handle the transactions. They don't even have to deal with the State Administration of Foreign Exchange any longer. Therefore, again, there should be no excuses in terms of delayed payments any longer. How the RMB trade settlement scheme works. All trade and other current account transactions between China and other parts of the world can be settled in RMB. That's the simple fact. For purchasing goods in China, the offshore company, basically your entity, can make RMB payments through a bank in Hong Kong and then to its trade counterpart in China. And RMB can be purchased or borrowed from any bank in Hong Kong if necessary. For the sale of goods to China, again, an offshore company can receive RMB payment through a bank in Hong Kong from its trade counterpart. RMB proceeds can be deposited with a bank in Hong Kong and again invested in a wide range of RMB financial products. At wholesale level, an offshore bank can convert or borrow RMB from another bank in Hong Kong. The clearing bank or correspondent bank in Hong Kong is actually, or the clearing platform in Hong Kong is the Bank of China. Generally, my opinion at the moment is if you do want to do RMB trade transactions, the easiest would be to open the account with the Bank of China, just because my clients have had issues with HSBC and other banks. So Hong Kong is the first RMB offshore center. It was the pioneer, actually, in the offshore RMB business. The RMB business was launched in 2004, actually, as a testing ground to see how it would work. With obviously the proven experience and the time to handle these new products, there is a comprehensive range of offshore RMB products and services that have been developed to meet business needs of local and foreign companies as well as financial institutions. China's 12th five-year plan supports the development of Hong Kong as an offshore RMB business center, and obviously as such reinforces Hong Kong's status as an international financial center. A series of supportive measures, the latest one was in August 2011, so a year ago, has been introduced, including expansion of geographical coverage of the RMB trade settlement scheme to the entire China. So as I mentioned, all companies in China don't require to have application approvals in order to be able to trade in RMB. Hong Kong has developed a highly efficient and reliable renminbi clearing platform. Like I said, this was actually handled through the Bank of China. The RMB real-time gross settlement system, in short, this is called the RTGS system, is used to support banks from all over the world in developing various kinds of offshore RMB business. This system in Hong Kong is actually linked to the China National Advanced Payment System, the CNAPS. Now this is all getting a little bit complicated, but what I want to say from here is that Hong Kong has actually developed a very thorough and efficient system to handle the RMB payments. From June 2012, the operating hours of the system was extended to 15 hours, facilitating all financial institutions in different time zones to settle offshore renminbi payments through Hong Kong structures. At the end of May 2012, there were 196 banks participating in the RMB clearing platform in Hong Kong. This is of 30 countries and 6 continents. So like this, you can see, globally speaking, all banks are getting familiar in terms of how to handle RMB business and how to execute the RMB business. Who will be the next offshore RMB center? Now, the reason why I've put this slide in here is I'll give you a case study from an existing client of mine. My client is based out of New York. They did not want to establish an entity in China to handle their RMB business. They wanted to do it directly from New York. Due to the RMB globalization, my client actually met with the Bank of China in New York. The bank official said that it was no problem to open an RMB bank account and to handle service trade settlements. My client is in the services industry, service trade settlements with China. The first deal came. The client in China made the payment to Bank of China, New York, but the payment was not processed fully, and my client in New York could not actually obtain the funds. The reason behind this is actually because Bank of China, New York did not have the capabilities yet and the infrastructure internally yet to handle the trade transaction. All banks globally, besides in Hong Kong, are actually not yet fully capable of handling RMB transactions. Either they don't have the deposits or they don't have the internal infrastructure to handle these RMB payments. Now, there has been a lot of information on the news whether London or Singapore will be the next places to be the next offshore RMB centers. Now, many bank executives, as well as the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, they believe that Hong Kong will remain as the leading offshore renminbi market. But it'll just be complemented rather than rivaled by London as the offshore market develops. London, as London and other financial capitals are pushing their credentials as offshore renminbi trading centers, there is a concern that leveraging its time zone advantage, London could pose a threat to Hong Kong in its offshore renminbi business. HSBC, they firmly believe that London will just play a complementary role rather than a competitive role alongside Hong Kong in this regard. Just so you understand, London actually has the largest amount of bankers in the world for the main reason that London, due to its location and its time zone advantage, it has access to the Japanese and Hong Kong markets, and it has also access to the US markets. As such, it's a perfect location for the next RMB offshore center. In July 2012, however, Singapore did edge ahead of London in the race after Beijing announced that it would authorize one of its banks as a clearing bank for renminbi in Singapore. What this means is that it would enable Singapore-based banks, including branches of foreign banks like Standard Chartered or Citibank, to skirt the custodial relationships or the forced relationships with banks in Hong Kong to access the currency at Bank of China's branch. So basically what this means is Singapore can now bypass Hong Kong in terms of doing this RMB business. In theory, this would move all cut costs for banks, making potentially Singapore more attractive. Now, just a couple of statistics here. 55% of Singapore's external trade is in intra-Asian business, compared to only 20% for Hong Kong. So many bank executives believe that Singapore might actually overtake Hong Kong in terms of Southeast Asia business in the RMB sector. The only difference, obviously, is currently Hong Kong still has renminbi deposits that outweigh many of the other Asian countries, making it very easy to do RMB business through Hong Kong. Now I would like to give you some practical approaches on how to use RMB for your business. Here I've outlined how a Hong Kong company can be utilized. Naturally, if Singapore grows, then you can utilize a Singapore company to do this. If you want to have a UK company, again, the UK company can do this, again, depending on which bank that you work with. First, I'm going to highlight how the trade transaction would actually work. Your existing company or your worldwide customers would place orders with your Hong Kong company, and your Hong Kong company would place orders with your suppliers in China. The orders with your suppliers, they would be placed in RMB. All the negotiation would be done in RMB. Your Hong Kong company will then eventually take the risk in the currency exchange to then pay your customers worldwide. And as I mentioned earlier in the webinar, what you might find is that you might get cheaper prices with your suppliers just by negotiating in RMB. And this is something you should definitely explore. See what you can do. Maybe you will even find new suppliers who can offer better prices in RMB. So this is definitely something to explore. As I mentioned, all companies in China should be able to handle the RMB transactions without any issues. The benefits to the companies, and I'll bullet point these so you can hear them clearly. A buyer from the China market having an RMB account in Hong Kong allows you to increase your pricing transparency. Goods can be priced and settled in RMB without any potential markup resulting from foreign exchange. So like I said, try and start negotiating in RMB with your suppliers. You improve supplier relationships. The elimination of the foreign exchange documentation means that days payable for the suppliers is shortened. Suppliers can receive faster tax rebates from the authorities, thereby reducing issues in the supply chain. This is something that suppliers want to do and want to hear about. And again, you widen your supplier base. You might be able to find new suppliers, handle the negotiations in RMB in better pricing because previously they couldn't handle foreign exchange. So again, this is quite an advantage. And now, how does it work in terms of banking? Basically, the Hong Kong company will handle the exchange, which is either US dollar or euro, into RMB with the participating bank in Hong Kong. Now, the participating bank in Hong Kong is usually what is called the clearing platform. This is, again, like I said, Bank of China. Bank of China will handle the exchange and will then transfer the RMB into your HSBC, Standard Chartered, or your Bank of China account, whichever bank you have in Hong Kong. The transfer is then made into the settlement account of the PRC, which is also Bank of China. And then the customer in China, the mainland designated enterprise, would then receive the funds. So there are a lot of steps that are involved here. You do have intermediary banks that you need to settle with. But in theory, as I mentioned, the system in Hong Kong has been developed that it's so efficient and so practical that actually it can be done quite easily. The second case study is in reference to sales into China. As you can see, the transaction is very similar to sourcing. You will find that your customers would be happy to pay you in RMB so that they don't have to handle the currency exchange risks. The biggest advantages really are that you do reduce the risk. Holding a renminbi cash position is a natural hedge for two-way import and export flows from China. So if you're utilizing your Hong Kong company not only for sales, but also for export, then this does help your cash flow business. You increase control, you manage the timing of the foreign exchange transactions, you improve turnaround time, so you do shorten the settlement cycle and days sales outstanding by eliminating the foreign currency settlement. You might even widen your client base. Renminbi settlement can be used to access a wider client base who might have limited access to foreign currency in China. And you might have a competitive advantage. Not all overseas firms have the ability right now to set up a Hong Kong company or to receive payments in RMB. So you potentially could edge out your competitors in terms of handling this business. Again, in terms of how the actual banking works, the PRC company will make the payment to your account in Hong Kong. It will go through the clearing platform first in China. It will enter the HSBC Standard Chartered account. At that point, it goes through the clearing platform. Just for your information, Bank of China is the clearing platform at the moment, and then it enters your Hong Kong company account. There are quite a few steps that need to be taken, but overall, again, the transaction should be pretty smooth and quite clear. Now here I have a list of frequently asked questions in terms of how renminbi business actually works, and all of this. This is something that you can read later. I will be sending the presentation to all of you. I do just want to tell you a few stories that I have heard from clients of mine that have started to negotiate with their banks in Hong Kong in terms of RMB business. It seems that RMB business is still a brand new issue for many of the banks in China. There is still not too much information on how to physically handle transactions. The clearing platforms seem to be going very smoothly. So if you do want to do the business in RMB, I would suggest you open the account with Bank of China for the time being until all the overseas banks in Hong Kong have the right capabilities and understanding in terms of how to do the business. I have one client who works with HSBC. He told his bank that he would like to settle a payment to a Chinese Chinese supplier in China. The HSBC bank had no clue what documents needed to be filled in, and basically they rejected the application, saying that it should be done in foreign currency. In addition to that, Hong Kong companies can only remit RMB to corporate entities in China. Now, this could be a problem because many suppliers in China, the owners of these companies, they like to use their own personal bank accounts to receive funds for the purchase of goods. As such, you could not use your Hong Kong company to do this. A Hong Kong company can only remit RMB funds into a corporate account in China. So please do keep that in mind, that is a very important issue when handling the physical transactions. There are no limitations in terms of the amount that can be transferred. This would just be based on your contract value and your invoice value. But in theory, there should be no issues in terms of making these transactions. As I said, in countries overseas, and I have traveled extensively, I have met with banks, they all provide RMB products and services. I just don't know how far along they really are in terms of handling it. It is wise to speak with your banks, to have meetings with your banks, and try to obtain as much information as possible so that you can beat out your competitors when the time comes to handle your RMB business. And as I said, for those of you that are sourcing in China, start negotiating in RMB. See whether you can obtain better prices. It might surprise you. I did have one client who was able to obtain 30% cheaper prices for textiles and garments. So again, try it. You really will never know. I have had other clients whereby their suppliers refused to do the business in RMB and still wanted to transact in foreign currency. So again, suppliers each have their own objectives, and it's just a matter of you speaking with them to discuss what can and cannot be done. This is the end of our presentation today. I hope you did enjoy it, and if you do have any questions specifically to the RMB issues, please do let me know. I'm more than happy to research information because it also means that I'll gain some information as well. Every company seems to be going through different experiences in regards to this, so we are more than happy to help. Here you can see our contact details. You can contact me or Sven, who is based in our Hong Kong office. Again, we hope that you enjoyed the webinar, and we hope to hear from you soon. For your information, we will be having 2 further webinars in the next 2 coming Wednesdays in regards to RMB. If you are interested, then please do sign up for them. I have understood that the campaign that was sent out, the links didn't work, but you can always go onto our website. There is an events section, and you can sign up there. So again, I hope you had enjoyed our webinar. I wish you a very pleasant remainder of your day, and goodbye.